What's up, all you beautiful Division 2 agents out there? Hope you all are having a fantastic and glorious day. I am Relentless XRG, and today I'm going to be your build doctor. So sit back, relax, and unwind, and don't fret, my pet. I am here to help. But if you happen to be new to the channel, or you're just enjoying the content, then be sure to ground and pound that like and subscribe buttons. And also, so that way you don't miss a single upload or a stream that goes live, reach up there and trigger the bell, and that way you'll never miss a notification. But anyways, enough of my rambling, let's hop into it. So let's start out with Berserk first. Berserk states in its description, you gain plus 10% weapon damage for every 20% of max armor depleted. So as your armor is being stripped away, you're gaining weapon damage output. So when it comes to building and speccing into and creating a build around the talent Berserk, you want to spec into heavily on health over armor. Such as an example on your screen as far as this particular build, I only have 193 armor, but my health pool is 276. Because your armor is just a placeholder, you want it stripped away, and you're going to survive, and your survivability is solely dependent more or less only on your health. So a talent that synergizes with the Berserk chest piece talent is the glove talent by way of Clutch. And Clutch states that critical hits restore 20% health and repairs 1% armor, requires 4 or less defensive Legos. So since you're having to solely survive off your health pool, it synergizes really well. If you remember at the beginning of the game, when the game came out, shortly thereafter there was what they call the Lifestealer Build, and it utilizes two of these talents, which is Berserk and Clutch. It had other things accompanied with it, like Strain for one, so that way the crits that you're hitting, and as your armor is being depleted, you're gaining critical hit damage and weapon damage from Berserk all at the same time. But it's kind of changed a little bit, but it's still pretty good. But we're just focusing mainly on these two talents together, with the exclusion of Strain accompanying it. So as you're critting, those crits are healing for 20%. So you're getting 20% of your health back. So since you have such a large health pool, 20% of say 200k health is 40k health. So you're getting 40k health back for every crit. So your health bar meter is constantly fluctuating, but you basically have the mentality and more or less stating that it's kind of like being kind of immortal. Because yes, you're taking damage, but you're repairing and getting your health right back of what's taken from you from whoever you're facing, whether it be other players or other agents. So let's go over Bloodsucker now. Bloodsucker states in its description, depleting an enemy's armor adds a stack of 25% bonus armor for 10 seconds. Requires 11 or more defensive Legos. So the premise behind this is, it doesn't matter whether it's NPCs or players, and you don't have to use just bullets. It could be your skills, it could be grenades, it could be your specialist weapons, such as like the grenade launcher on the Demolitionist. Anything that's at your disposal that you can rip away armor from NPCs or players, then you're going to get a stack of bonus armor of 25%, and that 25% is determined by your overall armor pool. So with the Bloodsucker talent, unlike the Berserk, you want to go the opposite and most typical route. You want to spec armor over health, because the higher and the larger armor pool that you have will directly affect how big that chunk of armor you get and determine how much that 25% you get back. So if you are, say, 400k armor, one stack will be equivalent to 100k armor. So if you get like 4 stacks, that's an additional 400k, and if you're already at full armor and haven't lost anything, then essentially that is basically 800k armor. So it's a really effective way to fortify your armor and increase your survivability. So one is directly affected by its armor pool, and the other one is more or less a pure offensive talent, but it just isn't so dependent on your armor pool like Bloodsucker is. It's just utilizing the taking away of what armor you have in order to increase your damage. So one increases damage, one increases your survivability and armor. And you can kind of see it's basically the same on the same lines, just utilizing it in different ways. One is more offensive, one is defensive. But since these two talents are two of the most popular ones in the Dark Zone, that is why I chose to more or less pin these two against each other and continue the series, since I've already done one when it comes to Unbreakable versus Bloodsucker. But moving and diving deeper into this, let's take for instance, in the Dark Zone, if the Berserk Clutch build is directly going against the Bloodsucker build in a 1v1 situation scenario. So, as the Berserk is dishing out damage and the Bloodsucker is tearing out the armor, the Berserk in his mind is like, yes, strip all my armor off, because the more you do it, the stronger I'm going to become. And the Bloodsucker guy, not knowing, forehand what the other one is using, he's thinking, yes, I'm going to strip off your armor, and bada bing, bada boom, I'm going to increase my survivability. So while you're retreating, I'm going to be even stronger and be able to withstand a lot more damage. Well, they kind of more or less, I'm not going to lie, they kind of counter each other. Because as the Berserk is stripping the armor off and getting stronger when his armor is being stripped off, and getting and receiving his health by those crits, in turn he's getting that 1% armor value for every crit. So essentially 5 bullets, then it's 5%. But even that one tiny iota of armor that you're getting back, the Bloodsucker build is ripping it off. And even though it's just a fraction of armor, it's still depleting your armor. In turn, you're feeding the Bloodsucker stacks on stacks on stacks. And just if you're standing side by side directly in front of each other, it's going to come down to a damage output game when it comes to the base damage. And of course, the hit registration, if it's all working properly. And like I said, it's basically countering one another. Because as the Berserk is taking off the armor of the Bloodsucker is gaining even more armor in direct comparison from his armor being taken off. I know it is very, very confusing and when trying to explain it, and I promise you, I'm trying to do the best I can. But essentially, they're countering each other. So if all their bullets are hitting on point, it's just a back and forth battle. One gains a little bit of armor, the other one takes it off and is getting procs of armor, and then the other one, since all his armor is taking off and are off, he's a lot stronger, and he's utilizing the crit to keep his health pool in constant fluctuation, but upright. So as one is surviving off their pure health pool and the fluctuation of health, the other is more or less surviving and increasing his survivability for depleting your armor. So one is depleting armor continuously because he's getting that little 1 iota of armor from Clutch, and then vice versa, the Berserk build is critting on you to keep his health pool afloat. So if you just kind of visualize that in the Dark Zone, one has the mindset, I just want to take off your armor so that way I can get my procs and increase my survivability. And the other one's mindset is, I want you to take off my armor because that's going to make me stronger, and then I'm going to survive off my health pool. So it's a back and forth chess match, and it all boils down to someone's aim, utilizing cover, making the other miss shots, and just who has the stronger will and weapon damage and knowing how to hit those shots. And it's just a cat and mouse. It's going to be a back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But it doesn't always correlate and play out that same way. NPCs and all these other things play a factor. But also, if one retreats into cover, so that way they can pop an armor kit, and NPCs will harass you. Both can still utilize NPCs to further that cycle that they were just in, as far as depleting armor, gaining armor, and then critting on you and gaining health and more or less increasing their survivability. So how to put it, it's I want to say it's kind of like a reversed striker in a way, as far as striker getting, you know, his stacks, and in turn those stacks increase the damage output. But I mean, you can tell that there's remnants of Division 1 and basically every single talent in Division 2. So really, there is no definitive winner here. It just comes down to person's playstyle and how good they are and how well they know their build, and their accuracy, you know. There is no definitive winner. But since these are two of the top two talents that people are using in Dark Zone, not too many people really dive deep into the thinking of what builds they are actually going to come across and face in the Dark Zone. So basically, one is the worst nightmare of the other. And, you know, it's hand in hand and goes in tandem. Because these two builds, you know, as far as they're countering each other, are their own worst enemies. And this is the one build you do not want to face if you're Berserk, and if you do not want to face if you're a Bloodsucker. So I hope I haven't confused you. I know I've confused myself a little bit, but in case you don't really, you know, dive deep into thought and are just new to the game, they both are great talents. It's just personal preference and playstyle of which one you choose, and more or less what type of player and build you're trying to create. But we'll be continuing this series and pinning more talents against each other and seeing how, you know, things would play out if those two builds face each other, such as this. So it's basically a draw, and my controller just died. Sorry about that. As far as who's going to come out on top. But like I said, I hope I didn't confuse you. I hope I, you know, kind of explained this a little bit better, so that way you understood it. And if you have, if I confused you any more than what you already were, I apologize. If my intentions are in the positive and in the right direction. I just want to, you know, help inform other agents that might be new to the game or really haven't put that much thought as far as the type of builds that you'll be facing in the Dark Zone. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all the love and support. We'll see you, Pudgeon, later.